Some women are simply born rich, confident, and naturally magnetic to their desires. Let's be clear, this podcast is not for them. However, if you're a soul-driven, visionary, or entrepreneurial woman who's been on a mission to learn how to create a better future bursting to come out of you, welcome to my world. I'm Jo Warwick, and this is Rich, Sexy, and Free. I've dedicated most of my career to helping women get to their core power and unlock the missing pieces for their own unique success. You may already know me as the author of The Big Book of Love. With 30 years experience in psychology, embodiment, manifesting, and energetics, we will be exploring together and with guests all things mindset, self-expression, and richer flow of money and love in your life. The keys to becoming rich, sexy, and free. So if this excites you, don't forget to like and subscribe on your favorite platform so you can stay up to date with the podcast. I'm so excited that today we'll be having a guest episode with a dear friend of mine, Jackie Dragone, who is a business powerhouse. This woman is the founder of Becoming Wildly Successful, and you can check out her own podcast, Becoming Wildly Successful. She helps women really step out the box and call their shots in business, igniting their voice in marketing and messaging. And she can convert sales. I just love her work. Before we dive into this fantastic episode, I want to let you know that I am hosting a free masterclass, Healing the Curse of Perfectionism. So if you're someone who's been struggling with perfectionism and you know that it goes deeper than just being tidy, you may want to check out my Alchemy of Abundance masterclass. You can, of course, still find Rich, Sexy, and Free on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And you'll find all the details of the upcoming free masterclass at richsexyandfree.com. Hi, Jackie. It's so wonderful to have you here on the Rich, Sexy, and Free podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Jackie, what does rich really mean to you?
Yeah, I think that this is such a loaded question because automatically you hear the word rich, and I think it's a natural human response to think about money, and to think about resources and to think about like tangible cash flow rich. However, the more that I like explore life and experience life, I think that rich comes like more in an inner state of being. It comes more from how you feel. It comes more from perspective. It comes more from inner peace. And I suppose you could say that money can create some of those things for you in your life, but also then it poses the question, how much money? It's actually been a question that I've been exploring myself. I don't know that I have a definitive answer for you, but it's definitely a bigger answer than it would have been like 10 years ago when I would have just said, give me a lot of money.
And those 10 years ago, what would have the striving for rich have looked like?
Yeah. It's interesting that you ask that. I would have thought what I make now in my business would be so much money, but then you start to increase your income and you're like, oh, well, now I want more, which then poses the question of what is rich? If you're going to keep moving the bar for yourself, at what point are you actually happy with what you have?
In the past 10 years, what would you have done with the money that you have now?
Gosh, I mean, I would have just paid bills because I lived in New York City for so long, which was so expensive. It was literally paycheck to paycheck for a while. I was just getting my fitness career off of the ground. I had student loans. My perspective of what's possible was really small because I wasn't in the entrepreneurial space yet. My family very much lived that way. It's like this old paradigm that I feel like I've just recently seen. Oh, you can shift out of this. There's other options. There's other ways to live. There's other ways to look at money. So it's like hard to even compare or go back to her because my mind wasn't exposed and my eyes weren't exposed to everything that they are now.
So when you're saying that rich for you is definitely a state of being, but of course there is also physical money involved. How do you spend your money now?
Yeah, most of my money I reinvest back into my business or into my future or into myself in different ways. I'm not like a big spender on stuff or things. I like to travel, I like experiences, and I like to learn. And that's really how I like to spend my money more so than shopping.
Which is funny, isn't it? Because it's still a form of
Yes.
shopping. And And I do believe it can become addictive. The same as traveling can become addictive. I also do believe that personal development can become unhealthy and
Yes.
addictive. The
Yes.
constant, I have something to fix, there's something to prove, there's somewhere more
Yes.
to go. If you could spend your money anywhere and you wanted to live anywhere, where would that be?
Yeah. Right now, like we're on path to go to Mexico. I would buy a place there actually in a heartbeat. If I had the cash flow right now to just put down and outright buy a place, I would definitely do that. That would
Mhm.
be part one. And then I feel like it would just evolve to other tropical locations across the world, just because that's the environment that I love being in so much. So it would definitely be buying like a condo in Mexico somewhere. And then it would be traveling out to other places to explore more. And it's interesting too to be like, well, what would you do or how would you see the world? Because I think a lot of my life, it's been, what do I want to plan for? Or what do I want to happen? Or where am I going? Or what is my goal? And I'm actually starting to like break down that paradigm too, because every time I've planned for something, it always goes like a little bit different. So I have this compass of what I want and where I
Mhm.
want to go, but it's almost hard to say exactly. It comes to me one step at a time. If you had asked me this 5 years ago, I would have told you something totally different, which just shows me that I change and evolve, and so does the plan or what I see myself doing.
Well, now, isn't that a good conversation? We get these ideas of
Yeah.
rigidity and
Yeah.
perfectionism. And it has to look like this because somebody else did it, or somebody else wants us to have it, or we think that's going to give us success or love. Generally, we think it's going to give us love for some ingrained program that says, if I have £1 million, I'll be loved. If I have the fancy condo, I'll be
Mhm.
loved. Whether that's being loved by millions or loved by your parents, generally. So that recognition that we are constantly evolving, constantly changing, and allowing space for that constant
Mhm.
rebirth, death process. We are a constant
Mhm.
phoenix, and yet we have been programmed to stay the same. But our nature, our makeup is everything about burning it down, breaking it up, re alchemizing it, taking it to another level. We are the ocean, a constant cycle of growth, which allows us that joy of the playing and dreaming of, oh, yeah, when I buy my condo in
Mhm.
Mexico and when I'm there, won't that be wonderful? But still enjoying the
Yeah.
journey now.
Yeah.
It's that wonderful
It
process, isn't
is.
it?
And I just that you said enjoying the journey now, because that's something else that I've been actively looking at. I think a lot of my life I lived in this I'll be happy when, or I'm striving for this. And then that will be the thing that changes everything or makes me happy. So a lot lately, especially like I've been saying to myself, well, why can't you just be happy right now? What would bring you joy in this exact moment? Maybe this isn't your ideal scenario, but what if it was? Or how could you look at it that way?
Yeah. And what is really good in
Yeah.
this moment, because everything is serving
Yeah.
us. Everything is working out for us. And it's all about that mindset, isn't it? About where do we look and what do we see? And when we fight against it and think it's a failure or a mistake or a delay or we're not in control of it, it makes us slow
Yeah.
down. So I love that you're doing that. I got reminded of it a couple of years ago when I had this plan to return to living in
Mm.
Cambridge and I have a property there. And it seemed like it was going to be the most easiest thing in the world. And that I was going to I'd moved from Cornwall, I moved to the Lake District. I enjoyed that. I'll move to my folks for a month and then that will allow the tenants to move out and I will move back into Cambridge. 7 months later, I moved into Cambridge and then had to move back
Mm.
out again because I managed to break my left foot and then had to have surgery on my right knee. 7 months later, I eventually got
Mm.
settled in Cambridge. Now, I got to be in Cambridge, but there were things that had to
Mhm.
happen. And I was in the right space, actually staying with my folks. And it gave me a chance to get to know my parents in a
Mm.
different way. At the age I am now, they're not going to be around
Mhm.
forever. And it gave me a chance to see
Mm.
it differently.
Absolutely. I can so relate to that. That's where we're at right now. We sold everything that we own and moved into an Airbnb with the intention of going to move to Mexico in about a month from now. But we've had some roll up and we've had to extend out until January, which is another 5.5, 6 months from our initial departure date. Like the human in me is like frustrated and annoyed, and this isn't how it's supposed to go. But at the same time, it's all right. Maybe we had to face the things that are coming up now so that when we go, it will be in a more grounded state, in more peace, leaving the country. So maybe the universe right now is trying to ground me before I go out on a great adventure. I don't know. It's really challenged the way that I have had to like surrender and let go of the control that I like to have over everything.
And I love that. I was thinking though, oh, January, what a lovely time to go and be
I
somewhere
know.
hot.
Yeah, it'll ultimately be great timing.
I think that's such a great conversation because so many people think when I get my business or when I move from my job and I move into my business full time, or when I get a new job, or when I'm at the next level, or when I get the next partner. But the truth is, when we lock into that space of where we are now and we hate it, we can't move from it because we're not in a pace of unattachment. And it's the non-attachment that allows it to move forward. And I think that is such an ultimate lesson in, as you said right at the beginning, rich for you being a state of being. And mindset, the first flip that happens into being rich, sexy, and free is always on the inside. I am rich to my core. I am rich. I am aligned. I am strong.
This is so interesting. Maybe you could speak on this with like manifestation. When we look at actually being the creator of our life, if we're going to appreciate where we are now, but we still have a vision of where we want to go, and the key to getting to where we want to go is loving where we're at now, how does that all work together? I think that's something that I've always been confused by in the realm of what you do.
Well, they're both real in their parts because they interlink. A vision is you're on a boat and the captain knows where he's going, or she, the captain, has a vision of where they're going to get to. And you may have a map, but you've still got to navigate the journey. And so you've got to love the boat that you're on. If you don't love the boat that you're on, you're never going to get to the destination.
Yeah.
And that loving and appreciating what you've got doesn't take away. And I think that's such a wonderful example of a limiting belief that comes up for all of us. This idea that it has to be shit for us to have better. And the idea that an ending has to be bad and hard and all of that, traumatic and toxic and all of that. One of the things when I was, a psychotherapist full time is teaching people how to have good endings. That an ending can be loving and it can be conscious. Learning to have good transitions is probably the biggest life lesson because you're constantly transitioning from one place to another. And if you get stressed and believing something has to be negative or hard or difficult for you to leave from one place to another, imagine how that affects leaving one frequency to another frequency or from one state of being to another state of being, which we do so many times in a day. So it's a very interesting balance of I have my vision. I love my vision. I know what it feels like. And I also think just raising a point about the vision, not everybody can see a vision. When we're told we should see the vision, not everybody can see it, but they can feel it. They can feel the vision. They know what it would feel like when they get there. I tend to have a million different tools to help people tap into what that will feel like and be like for them. That connection of that rich self when she's there, the rich self. Because if you're somebody who can't see it and then you're told the only way you manifest is by seeing it, you're buggered. You don't have to be, because not everybody can do it like that and it still works perfectly fine. So yes, a lovely digress. I want to bring us back to talk about money. I would love to dive in a little bit more about your personal relationship with money.
I think that money and I have had a pretty turbulent relationship. And that's also like part of this whole journey that I'm going on. I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money, and that was obvious to me. My dad was always working multiple jobs. We always had the car that like needed a paint job. Like we always were just like saving for a rainy day or just in case. My parents never splurged on anyone. They hardly went out or went on vacation. Like it was just money wasn't something that you really used for your enjoyment. Money was something that you kept for like safety and security, and because eventually you would definitely need it. So that was really like my growing up relationship with money. Then I went to college and I graduated in student loan debt. I was the first in my family to go to college. I put myself through college, graduated in massive debt, living in New York City as a waitress, which how am I going to pay this loan and pay my bills and make money as a waitress, completing my dream of becoming a professional dancer? By the time I got a pretty decently high paying job in New York in the fitness business, I had so many bills to pay from years of not having money. Like there was debt to pay. There was still my student loans. Money has been a lesson that I have had to learn over and over and over again. Right. And then transition to 2022, I start making compared to when I was making a ton of money to me in my world, I'm making $10,000 a month, 15, 20, 10, 15, 16. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much money. I don't think I'm a bad steward of money. I'm really good at managing it and paying everything on time and this and that. But I don't think that I have fully transitioned to this fun relationship with money. It's more of a stress point for me. And that's such an awareness right now too, where I'm like, how can we look at money like there's more than enough? There's always been more than enough. Even when I don't think there's more than enough, it shows up and my bills have always been paid. So how can we not only let go of control of the timeline, but just start to trust money more and trust the responsibility of it more? That's the full of my journey, which is funny because I help people make money, but that's probably why, because I understand the importance.
Absolutely. I mean, the reason Rich, Sexy and Free is here, I've spoken on many of the episodes about my own experience with money, that it's definitely been complicated. But the reason, as I say in the intro every time to Rich, Sexy and Free, this isn't for women who were born knowing how to do everything, knowing how to have money, but it is about how do you learn to have the mindset of somebody who always knows there's going to be money, who did grow up with a sense of absolute wealth, who does know that money is always around. It's a different, not just a vibration frequency, it's a different mindset, it's a different embodiment. And I think you said a really good point. It's not just the stewarding of money. It's how does money come in? How are we managing money? How are we enjoying money? Because when we don't have pleasure with money, which I know you said with your own family, that pleasure with money was not something that was available. There wasn't an education on that. So how do I learn to take and alchemize something from fear to joy? And I know that for myself, my upbringing, even though my internal world was filled with people who had lots of money, within my internal world of my parents, they had such conflict around money. Even though they made money, there's such fear around money, deep fear. And so my whole life has been about alchemizing from fear to joy, fear to love, that it's okay to not just look like you have money, but to feel like you have money and to have money in all ways. Because we can be super rich, but be terrified of money. Whereas you have other people who have such great mindset, billionaires who have made billions, lost billions, made billions back. Because innately their whole being says, I have money. I have amazing money. What was the first joyful experience you remember of having your own?
Yeah. I don't know if it was joyful, but I think it was brave and bold. I moved to New York City after graduating college, and I took whatever money I had and put the down payment on the apartment. And then I had $300 left to my name, and I still went. And I didn't let money control me, call it young, but I was just I'm going. It was that level of courage and bravery that I think is a conversation for another day. But I think you start to lose it a little unless you're conscious of it when you get older. It was my husband's 30th birthday, which was a little while ago at this point. And I surprised him with a trip to Puerto Rico. I was I'm going to figure out how to get us on a trip to Puerto Rico. It was the first time I used money to travel in that way. I was I'm buying a flight, I'm buying a hotel, and we had the best time. And we were just so appreciative. I think we cried the day we had to leave. I remember those two moments distinctively. And then we trickled more and more of that into our existence and our being. I feel this next one is a really big one. And maybe that's why there's a part of me that's separating me from what I really want. And that's why in our reality, we're not there yet, because I have this immediate human response is I'm going to go and it's going to mess everything up and I'm scared and there's fear. So this is like such a timely conversation. Just show the realness of it. It's what you said. It's like that resistance, that hesitation, that other things are popping up or coming to the forefront, because instead of trusting the money and trusting the vision, how do you shift out of the fear?
In one of my programs, my Millionaire Mindset program, there is an entire audio called Fuck It. And it is that attitude. If you already had it and you were already there and you already knew it was going to be safe, you just say fuck it and do it. When you were younger, with very little and you didn't know how it was going to be, you did it anyway.
Yeah.
And everything worked out. And I think of so many times when I stepped out and thought, I could do that. Why the fuck not? I could do that. And I think that the key point of leaning in, sometimes that fear is a miscommunication of actually it's excitement, but you're not allowing yourself to be excited. Like somehow excitement has become a bad thing instead of it being a good thing. And so the limiting belief is trying to keep you small, because then you won't need the limiting belief.
Yeah.
Which leads us perfectly onto the key part of rich, sexy, and free, and the powerhouse that sits in the middle. We've explored beautifully around the rich part, but the powerhouse of leading us into anything in our lives is the sexy part. It's the energy of vibrancy, vitality, leaning in, taking up that confidence, bringing your soul to the forefront, bringing your sexual energy to the forefront, the fire of desire and the fire of life force. It's the one that drives us forward to go, I'm hungry for life. I have a lust for life. So I'm curious into, where do you allow that vitality to come through?
Definitely for me, like health and wellness has been such a big part of vitality. Honestly, just like walking and moving my body every day, listening to music, maybe dancing around, exploring little tiny places, even if it's just a new shop I walk into or a new coffee shop that I want to go to, like exploration always makes me feel like more alive. And I feel like instantly more vitality in my life when I explore something, whether it's a completely new country or even just like a new little boutique that opens. So I think those are ways that I do it in my daily life. And I love that you're saying this, because for a long time I was like, vitality comes when I do something really big and really different, but you can find it every day in little tiny things if you're aware.
We're back to exactly how we started today on this wonderful conversation of the mindset, the embodiment, but also the freedom to be yourself every day in that state of richness and expressing your vitality, your vibrancy, your sexuality, your pleasure in every single moment is what achieves the goal that you want.
Yeah, exactly.
As we wrap up what has been a very delightful conversation, share this last thought on your own personal journey of rich, sexy, and free from a voice from where you are in the future, talking to yourself now.
Me in the future is going to say, you did it anyway, and you didn't have to worry so much or hold on so tight along the way. You were going to get there all along. So just look around you, stop, smell the roses, chill out, and putting one foot in front of the other, because you know how to take action and you know how to implement and you know what you're talking about. It's just a matter of doing it without the resistance.
Absolutely. Perfect words for everybody. Perfect words for yourself.
Yes, thank you.
It's been great to connect with you today, but before you leave, if you haven't already, don't forget to come and be part of the Wealthier Woman community. And if you want to find out more about how I can help you personally, or check out any of my books, products, or coaching packages, just simply go ahead and visit richsexyandfree.com. I look forward to seeing you next week on the podcast.